My best friend insisted I wear simple clothes for the ball selection. She became extremely upset when the most attractive Marine chose me as his date. Every year, students from the Marine Academy visited our university to select dates for their formal ball. It was a major tradition where they would walk through the main courtyard in full dress uniform and formally invite someone to attend with them. My best friend, Alexis, had been focused on this since freshman year. For 3 years, she planned what she would wear, how she would stand in the courtyard, and even practiced her surprised reaction in the mirror. She was certain multiple Marines would approach her, and she would simply choose the best-looking one. When senior year finally arrived, she woke me up at 5 a.m. to help with her hair and makeup. She wore a red dress she had specifically purchased for the occasion, spending $200 on it. Meanwhile, she told me to wear my usual jeans and a plain shirt, saying she didn't want us competing for attention. She also added that Marines never chose girls like me anyway. According to her, I was the supportive friend type, not the one who gets chosen, and I should accept that role. We stood in the courtyard with around 200 other girls, and Alexis positioned us in the center where she would be most visible. When the Marines entered, the area went quiet. There were about 30 of them, all in formal uniform. Leading them was a man who looked like he belonged in a movie, tall, composed, with striking green eyes visible even from a distance. Alexis gripped my arm tightly and whispered that he was hers. She began adjusting her posture and flipping her hair to attract his attention. He walked directly toward us. Alexis stepped forward, ready with her practiced reaction, but he passed her and stopped in front of me. He introduced himself as Colin and asked if I would do him the honor of being his date to the Marine Ball. Alexis audibly gasped and tried to step between us, insisting there must be a mistake. Colin calmly moved aside and continued looking at me, waiting for my response. When I said yes, he smiled and handed me a formal invitation with his contact details. Alexis stood still as other Marines selected their dates around us. Not one approached her. For the rest of the day, she didn't speak to me. When we returned to our apartment, she reacted strongly. She claimed I must have influenced his decision, possibly by speaking to him beforehand. She accused me of secretly preparing for this and pretending otherwise. She said I knew how important this was to her and that I had taken her moment. She even used the word stole, as if Colin were something she had claimed. She demanded I message him and decline, saying I was unavailable, sick, or in a relationship. When I refused, she called me a terrible friend and said someone like me didn't deserve someone like him. She suggested he either felt sorry for me or made a random choice. For the next 2 days, she ignored me while telling others I had betrayed her. She claimed I had planned everything and intentionally interfered with her chances. Then she crossed a line. While I was in the shower, she used my phone to message Colin, telling him I had changed my mind and wasn't interested. She deleted the conversation afterward. When I didn't hear from him for 3 days, I assumed he had lost interest until his roommate contacted me, asking why I had rejected him so harshly. That's when I learned what Alexis had done. I immediately reached out to Colin and explained the situation. He was relieved and said he had been genuinely excited to take me. He mentioned noticing me volunteering at the campus Veterans Center and said he found me kind and attractive. He had specifically hoped to ask me. We made plans to attend the ball, but I didn't tell Alexis. Instead, I told her she was right and that Colin hadn't contacted me again, so I likely wouldn't go. She quickly became friendly again, saying she knew he wasn't truly interested in me. On the night of the Marine Ball, Alexis stayed in our apartment watching movies, believing I was doing the same in my room. In reality, I attended the event wearing a navy dress my sister had lent me. I spent the evening with Colin, who turned out to be thoughtful, humorous, and genuinely interested in me. I returned to the apartment around 10 a.m., still reflecting on the experience. The evening had gone well. We had danced, talked, and laughed,
My feet were sore from the heels, and I kept glancing around nervously, expecting to see Alexis or one of our mutual friends. "You two had a great time at the ball," Margot said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "He wouldn't stop talking about you for weeks before it." "Really?" I looked at Colin, and he gave a small, embarrassed smile. I explained that I had been volunteering at the Veterans Center, and that he had apparently noticed me there months earlier. Margot listened carefully, asking about my major and my plans after graduation. She was easy to talk to, someone who made conversations feel natural. Then she noticed me checking the entrance again. "Are you okay? You seem nervous." I explained the situation with Alexis, from the beginning up to now. As I spoke, Margot's expression shifted from interest to concern, then to clear frustration. "Let me get this straight," she said when I finished. "This girl made you dress down so you wouldn't compete with her. Then, when someone chose you anyway, she sabotaged you and has spent years making you feel like you're not good enough, and you're still protecting her feelings?" Hearing it summarized like that made the situation sound unreasonable. "I know it's complicated," I said. "It's not complicated," Margot replied, setting down her fork. "Real friends don't spend years making you feel inferior. They don't manipulate you or bring you down. And honestly, sometimes people remove themselves. You just have to let them." Colin nodded in agreement. I sat there realizing they had pointed out something I had been avoiding for a long time. We finished lunch and walked out together. As we were leaving, I ran into Dominic from my dorm building. He was with his girlfriend, Sarah, heading into the student union. "Hey," Dominic said with a grin, "you looked great at the ball the other night. I didn't know you and Colin were together." I immediately felt uneasy. I could sense Colin and Margot both looking at me, waiting for my response. Sarah added that we had looked good dancing together. "Thanks," I said. "Could you not mention it to anyone, though? I'd prefer to keep it private." Dominic looked confused. "Why would it be private? Everyone thought you two looked great. People were talking about it." "I'd just appreciate it if you didn't bring it up," I said. He shrugged. "Okay, sure, but it's not exactly a secret. People were posting photos." They walked inside, and I stood there feeling unsettled. Colin gently touched my arm. "It's going to come out eventually," he said. I knew that. I just wasn't ready to deal with it yet. 2 days later, I was sitting in my biology lecture, trying to focus on cellular respiration, when my phone started vibrating in my bag. I ignored it at first, but it kept going repeatedly. I finally checked and saw 12 messages from Alexis. My hands started shaking as I opened them. The first message was direct. The second included a screenshot from Instagram, a group photo from the ball. I was visible in the background, wearing the navy dress, with Colin's arm around me. We were both smiling, and the photo was tagged with our names. The following messages became increasingly angry. She asked why I had lied, called me dishonest, and said she couldn't believe I had betrayed her. The last message said we needed to talk immediately. I couldn't concentrate for the rest of the lecture. By the time it ended, there were 20 messages. I walked back to the apartment slowly, taking extra time because I knew what to expect. When I opened the door, Alexis was standing in the living room with her arms crossed. Her expression was tense. "Why did you lie to me?" she asked immediately. "You went to the ball, you went with Colin, and you let me believe you stayed home." I tried to explain about the message she sent from my phone, about fixing things, and about being concerned about her reaction, but she interrupted before I could finish. "You embarrassed me," she said. "You went behind my back and made me look foolish to everyone who knew the truth. Do you realize how many people saw you there while I was telling them he didn't want you?" "You were the one who messaged him from my phone," I replied, raising my voice slightly. "I did that because you took my moment. You knew how important that was to me. I planned for it for 3 years. I didn't take anything. He chose me. That's not something you can take." The argument continued for nearly 20 minutes. She insisted I had been planning this from the beginning and accused me of arranging everything in advance. She called me dishonest and said I had pretended to support her while undermining her. I tried to stay calm, but eventually
She presented the situation as if she had been completely supportive, while I had acted behind her back without reason. She intentionally left out the part where she interfered, shaping the story to appear as though she was the one being wronged. My phone quickly filled with messages, mutual friends asking what had happened, people forming opinions, some accepting her version, others asking for mine. I sat on my bed, watching the notifications build up, and realized I had to respond. I could either explain my side publicly or allow others to believe her version. I stayed there until around 3 a.m., staring at my phone. The messages kept coming in waves. Every time it seemed to slow down, more would appear. I opened a blank post and started typing. My hands were unsteady as I tried to explain everything clearly, without sounding harsh or overly defensive. I rewrote multiple sections, wanting people to understand the facts without turning it into an attack, even though she had already misrepresented me. By 4 a.m., I had a version that felt accurate. I explained how she had used my phone to message Colin while I was in the shower and then deleted the conversation. I included screenshots showing the message she sent and the timestamp confirming I was not present at that moment. I also mentioned how, over 3 years, she had labeled me as the supportive friend rather than someone who would be chosen. I kept the tone factual and reviewed it several times before posting it at 5 a.m. After that, I turned off my phone and attempted to rest, but I couldn't fully relax. When I woke up 3 hours later, my phone was filled with responses. Some people were surprised by the message incident and said they couldn't believe she had done that. Others argued that I still shouldn't have hidden the truth about attending the ball and that my actions were also wrong. A few people said the situation was unnecessary conflict over a relationship and that both sides needed maturity. One person even commented that the entire situation reflected unhealthy behavior on both sides. Reading everything left me feeling unsettled because regardless of what I explained, some people would still see me negatively. Around 2 p.m., Colin called. I hesitated before answering because the situation had become public, but I picked up. He asked if I was okay. His tone showed concern, though his frustration was clearly not directed at me. He said he had seen everything online and couldn't believe she had interfered in that way. He also asked why I hadn't told him about the other comments she had made over the years, about me being the supportive type. I explained that I had become so used to those remarks that I no longer recognized them as harmful. He paused and then shared a similar experience from his own life about a former friend who constantly competed with him in academics, sports, and even minor things. He said it took him time to understand that real friendships are not based on constant comparison or silent competition. We talked for over an hour about unhealthy friendships and why people stay in them. He made a point that stayed with me, that sometimes people tolerate behavior from friends that they would never accept from someone new, simply because of shared history. That conversation helped me feel understood in a way I hadn't before. Later that evening, there was a knock on my door. I expected Alexis, but it was Liliana Gonzalez from the room next to mine. We had always been friendly, but not particularly close. She asked if she could come in, and I agreed. Sitting down, she said she was glad I had finally addressed the situation. I must have looked surprised because she explained she had observed the dynamic between Alexis and me for 3 years. She said Alexis often treated me poorly and that she had noticed how she positioned herself as superior while making subtle remarks that lowered my confidence. She admitted she had considered saying something earlier but didn't want to create conflict. She also offered to support me if I needed to speak to housing about the living situation. I thanked her and appreciated that someone had recognized what I had experienced. Before leaving, she said that genuine friends support each other rather than diminish each other. The following week was difficult. Our shared friend group became divided. Some supported Alexis and avoided me, while others believed her actions were more serious and chose to spend time with me.
Many people stayed neutral and avoided both of us. I lost a few friendships that had lasted since freshman year, but I also grew closer to people like Liliana and Dominic, who admitted they had noticed issues in the past. Dominic later told me he had seen patterns of manipulation and was relieved I had addressed them. Living in the same apartment became increasingly uncomfortable. We spoke only when necessary. She made indirect remarks about trust, increased noise when I was studying, and left shared spaces untidy. To avoid tension, I spent most of my time at the library or with Colin. Eventually, I spoke to the housing coordinator who understood the situation and allowed me to request a room change, though none would be available for 6 weeks. I counted down the days and limited my time in the apartment. 3 weeks after everything escalated, Colin invited me to a Marine Academy event. I was hesitant, concerned that others might be aware of the situation, but